We are live. Woo, doggy. What is going on, beautiful people? I hope and pray that y'all are doing phenomenally well. Phenomenally well. So I'm extremely excited. I got Michael here with us today uh, in the virtual studio, I guess you should say.
Yeah.
Um, and we're going to talk about how you can scale what you are doing with your real estate investing through SMS and leveraging launch control as a platform to start getting deals, getting more deals, and really crushing it this year in SMS. And I'm super excited for you to be here, brother, as always, man. Thank you so much for being generous with your time.
Absolutely. My pleasure.
Absolutely. So, what's awesome is I think that so many people are forgetting, I don't know, maybe I could be wrong, how powerful SMS is when it comes to getting deals, closing deals consistently. I feel like it's almost, and correct me if I'm wrong, I feel like it's kind of taken a back seat to other forms of marketing. But when actuality, it is still, in one of my opinions, one of the fastest ways to get you in the game and start having quality conversations with sellers.
Yeah, I mean, there's a couple of things at play there. 5, 6 years ago, there wasn't a registration process. So if you wanted to come in and send text messages on day one, you could do that, right? And so a lot of what has been, what people think is actually like federal or legal regulations isn't. It's
Yeah.
just it's just changes to the registration process with the carriers and their kind of insistence on best practices being followed. So there is a registration process now, and that can take anywhere from 1 day to 10 days. And because there's a manual review and approval process that's behind it. So, launch control, we white glove that whole process, and we set up the registration for people. We even provide websites for people that don't have websites, because we have a system that can actually kind of create those landing pages with all of the tick or check boxes that the approval team is looking for, so to make sure that you can sail through and get registered. So one, I think that slight barrier to entry of needing to register and kind of wait out the start period um, slowed down text a little bit. I mean, we're still like text is still thriving. We're still getting
It
tons of
is.
people coming onto the platform every day. But in like a big industry-wide perception way, is that waiting period I think threw a few people off. And then, yeah, anytime there are new marketing tools out there, people want to play with them,
Yeah.
and so you're going to get a little bit of dilution. But what you find is that for any given business, right? And you and I have talked about this at length, right?
Yeah.
You need to have some active marketing and you
For
need to
sure.
have some passive marketing. So,
Exactly.
that marketing you do every day, send a text message, see what comes back in, make a cold call, see what comes back in, drive your truck across, was it East Texas or West Texas? Making a
Right.
bunch of phone calls,
There
right?
you go. Good memory.
Yeah. So, like that's that origin story of, Clifford the Cowboy Walker, when you were just on the road and you were just dialing, 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 dialing. That's what text is speeding up. It's taking that process that took you hours and months to put together, and it's shrinking it down to minutes, right? So that's very active. And then, on the passive side, like, yeah, of course you want to have some very targeted direct mail because it's expensive now. So you want to be really targeted with it. If you can afford the kind of flex pricing that comes behind PPC, then you can do some digital marketing as well. But and which again is passive, and you're waiting for those inbound leads to come in. But the truth is, in any business, you want to have a little bit of active and a little bit of passive, and you want to have the right balance between the two always.
Yeah, but I find number one, and I'm a fool. I'll say this bluntly: I am not a fan of direct mail in
You're not a
any
fan of
form,
what?
direct mail marketing in any
Oh,
form
okay.
of fashion. I'm
Yeah,
not. But even like with some of those other ones, I think for me, it's it's I can't stand the fact of sitting back and twiddling my thumbs, waiting for people to respond to it. Right? Like I love the proactive approach, the cold calling, the text messaging, the getting out there, hiking the ball, and getting in front of those sellers. I actually believe that so many people are trying to take the easier way out, right? And not to say that text messaging and cold calling is hard in any form or fashion. It's just, I don't know, like people, they want everything to come to them and fall in their lap. And sometimes you need to hike the ball. You need to go out
Yeah.
there, be a lot more proactive and say, you know what? I'm going to see who I can serve today, what family needs my help today, and be just a lot more proactive. And I think that's why I love SMS, because it gives people the ability to do that simplistically.
Yeah, and you need to, I think the percentages, you correct me if I'm wrong here, right?
Mhm.
So, but of everyone that you reach out to, because we're looking to buy properties at a discount, right?
Mhm.
Like that's the name of the game. If it's not enough of a discount, it's not a deal, right? Then it's just market value. We're not in the market value game. So it's something like 3 to 5% of people that you contact are even going to be open to the idea of a below market deal. And so you need to filter down as quickly as possible to that 3 to 5% so that you can then go through what you will teach as a sales process to convert as many of those as you can. And you're never going to convert 3 to 5%, right?
Yeah.
So like you're going to convert a lesser percentage of that. So although it's a people first process, and it is a at the end of the day, at discovery level phase, it's really about connecting with the person. But before you get there, you have to figure out who's even willing to have that conversation, that 3 to 5% conversation, which is where text is vital, right? Because it's going to very, very quickly sort out who's going to raise their hand and say, yeah, I'm willing to have that conversation. So, like you mentioned, you can send out batches on a Monday, and you're going to get some of those responses coming in, and you're going to be able to pivot them to a discovery call. Do the same thing on a Tuesday, a Wednesday. All right. I know you don't like direct mail, but if it's done right in a very targeted way, you might get somebody coming to you and saying, "Yeah, you know what? I do need a solution for my place. What do you got? What are you thinking? Whatever." It's nice because that conversation is a couple steps ahead, but you're playing a waiting game and you're nervous, and you could send out 500 mailers and get nothing back, and that was just a marketing loss, right?
Yeah.
You will always get something from text. You will
Oh,
always get something from running through 1,000 cold calls yourself and getting to people. It's going to take time and effort, but you will get something from the active. For the passive, it has a success structure. It works, but
yeah.
you don't know that going in, right? You go in, you're like, I don't know. I just spent $1,000. Let's see how this marketing budget flies, right?
Yeah. And
And
what?
it was. Oh, go
No, I'm
ahead.
sorry. Go ahead.
I was just gonna say, it's in that 3 to 5%. Another reason why something like text as an act of marketing is so important is you're really looking to catch people at exactly the right moments,
Hmm.
right? So
Yeah.
like it's just a weird analogy, but I think it checks out. Had a
Okay.
bunch of problems with my car recently. It's in the shop right now, and I'm super frustrated with it, right? If somebody had come to me a month ago and said, "Hey man, I'll give you 5 grand for your car," I would have said, "What? Get out of here."
Yeah.
Right? Somebody came to me today, right now, sent me a text message and said, "I'll give you 5 grand for your car." I'd be like, "Done. Come over, pick it up. I got the keys right here." Right?
Let's
Because
go.
I'm frustrated with it. I want out of that situation. I don't want to deal with it. Like maybe I could spend the money to fix up the car a bit more and sell it for a bit more, but I would just like it off of my plate, out of my life. I'll take it. Right. So when you catch somebody in that moment where they're just, they've got back taxes stacking up on the home, they've
Mhm.
got, whatever contributing issues in their life, and they're like, this thing is a weight around my neck right now. I don't want it. I want a clear exit. And you come in on that Monday with a text message that says, "Hey, I've got a solution. Might not have worked a month ago, but it's going to work on this Monday." You know what I
Yeah.
mean?
And I think that's why follow up is massive. I try to tell every single person getting into this industry, there's three things that you need to succeed: volume, consistency, and follow-up.
Yes.
I absolutely believe that to my core. If you're not getting deals, y'all, it is because there's a break in one of those chains: volume, consistency, and follow-up. Even if you suck
Yeah.
at talking to people, right? If you do enough volume and you stay consistent and you follow up, you'll get a deal. It's inevitable, right? I don't have an athletic bone in my body, but I promise you, if I sit on the free throw line and take enough shots into that, at some point a ball's going to go in that basket. At some point, it's the same thing
Yeah.
here, right? Because, like you said, you're going to catch that individual at the right moment to where they're like, thank you so much for coming in here and solving my problem and offering to take this burden off of my hands.
Yeah, I'm really glad you brought up the follow-up because I'll just stick with my car analogy, right? Like
Yeah.
a month ago, if somebody offered me 5 grand for my car, I would have said, absolutely not, get out of here, no way, right?
Yeah.
But by responding to that text message, I'm now in the person who has a launch control subscription, I'm in their inbox. And because I'm in their inbox, they can now put me onto a drip automation, right?
Mhm.
So this is they're not going to touch it. Every couple of weeks a text message is going to go out with something that brings value to the recipient. And so a month later, when I get a text message that says, listen, Michael, I get that, the 5K is a bit under market value, but keep this in mind, like you don't have to spend another penny on repairs. Like I want to buy it as is. Like I'll take on what repairs, I'll take on re-registration. I got all that, right? It's just money in your pocket. And I go, now after all the trouble I've had, I'm like, you know what? Yeah, that's fine. But now it makes sense. Now I'm
Yeah.
ready. And
It don't seem too
because
bad now.
now it doesn't seem too bad, but here's the difference between really successful investors using launch control and those that burn too much data to get their deals is not doing the follow-up, right? When somebody on that Monday is like, no way, and they take that as a forever no, right? Or that
Yeah.
person's like, no, I'm not. I'm happy with my car, whatever. But they're in the inbox. I'm happy with my home. They're in the inbox, and they're you can put them on that automation to keep them in touch with them. This is an important factor to keep in mind, right? Like, you didn't pull a list of turnkey homes in the area that were purchased within the last 6 months, right? Like you're not pulling a list of like really high probability they're super happy with their house. You're pulling lists that are like out of state landlords or people that are show markers for going into pre-foreclosure or got a list off of probate. They ended up on your radar because there was a higher propensity for them to want to take an off-market deal. Right. So when they in that moment, if they're not ready, they're still in that space where even if they're not, where they should be
Yeah.
considering off-market solutions. And if you're present when that dawns on them that they do need to have that conversation, it's going to be you that they have the conversation with. Right.
Yeah.
So we see people, we see people in launch control that are closing deals from text messages that they sent 8 months ago, 10 months ago,
Mhm.
because the people have come around and they've been just very lightly in the background, pinging them every once in a while, staying present in their text thread. And because
Mhm.
they've been able to do that, they get the deal, right?
Yeah. And I wish more investors and even some of the gurus would stress or emphasize the power of follow up a lot more. Because I think it's a common misconception, especially for newer investors coming in, that they think they're going to send out one marketing campaign and everybody's just going to jump on their 70% offer. And it's just not going to happen. And it doesn't matter, or what ends up happening, they start with launch control. They send out a campaign. They didn't close 10 deals like they thought. So now they stop that and then they go to jump to cold calling. That didn't work out. Then they jump to Facebook ads and PPC or PPL or whatever it is. Even with some of those other forms of marketing like PPL, it still requires follow-up. Because to your point, not just from text messaging, we get leads 6 months ago, 5 months ago from a PPL that's supposed to be the hottest leads, quote unquote. Like it
Mhm.
still requires follow-up, y'all. But what
Yeah, it's go ahead.
but what I think so important is that you're spending a premium with some of these other forms of marketing to basically do the same thing to follow up. Well, you can get a much, what is it, maybe a lower cost to entry, a lower barrier to entry, if I'm saying
Yeah.
that right, to get the same thing going here. You just have to work it.
Yeah, and the returns are extremely high. So like we give the advice for everyone, like don't even start with launch control until financially speaking you're able to commit to 3 months, right? Because
I agree.
within 3 months, what's going to happen is in the first 30 days, you're going to be sending out your batches, right? You're
Mhm.
filling up your pipeline and you're having discovery calls, you're having conversations. Now, hopefully, you get some willing sellers in that time frame, right? But then you're going to have to go through the dispo process and you're going to have to find a buyer for that property.
Yeah.
And you need a window of time in order to do that, right? The window of
Mhm.
time depends on the property, but you're going to need a window of time to do that. You're going to have to go through all of the transaction coordination, work with the title company, all of that, right? And before you get those, what everybody posts on Facebook, before you get that check, right?
Yeah.
And that check says $25,000, right? Your assignment fee was $25,000. So if you think about it, in 90 days, if you
Mhm.
committed, $1,500 towards your marketing spend via launch control, and then add in some data fees and whatnot. So let's say you spent $2,000 on
Yeah.
your marketing spend over that 3 months, and you made $25,000 from one single deal, and your net
Return.
profit on that is wild, right? Like you paid for your marketing for a long, long time. So you need to, like, if you have enough patience to stick out that 90 days, the likelihood, and if you're following up and you're using it the right way, you're going to get at minimum a deal, right?
Yeah.
And more likely, once you hit that 90 days, you'll be on a path where from 90 days forward, you're getting a minimum of one deal per month, right? So a
Mhm.
minimum of one deal per month means that on spending, say, $2,000 a month, you have the potential to make quite easily on a light account a minimum of say $300,000 a year, which
Yeah.
is that's a hell of a lifestyle business with,
Exactly.
with very minimal work. And if you want to step it up and do more marketing and get your deal flow up to 2.5, some coming from launch, some coming from other marketing sources that you're using. Well,
Mhm.
now you're pushing towards 500,000 to 7 figures, right? But
Yeah.
it really just depends on what you're aiming for. But you have to give yourself that ramp, right? It's not instant gratification. It's a foundational tool for your annual business, basically.
Yeah. And you know what's insane is I promise, and I'm not kidding you here. I tell everybody that whatever marketing you start, you need to give yourself 3 months to work it. You have to give your marketing strategy time to actually work, point blank and simple. But I hope y'all heard what Michael said too there. After that, when you are closing one deal a month, right? Think about how life changing that can really be for many of us, right? Now, I'm even going to be more modest than he was. Let's say that one deal is only closing you $10,000 a month, right? Which is extremely, extremely doable. It's extremely, extremely doable what he's saying at 20K a deal, right? 25K a deal. But I mean, let's take it down another notch. Would you be mad if you were working part time, making $120,000 a year, part time from the house, from a different country, traveling the world like Michael? Like really? Like
And
put
not specific hours, right? Like it's not that you work from 8 to noon every day or from noon to 4 every day. you send batches, you're going to send batches out in launch control at key times, right? Maybe you'll work from 9 to 11, take a very, very long lunch and send another batch in the afternoon and then be done, right?
Yeah.
And if you don't want to work on a Wednesday, don't work
Okay.
on a Wednesday,
No.
right? That kind of freedom of time is, at least for me, amazing if you can have it.
It is. And I think that it gives you the ability, and now we're getting deeper than just text messaging. Now we're I love where we're going here. But like you really start to create and design the life that you love. A prime example, I do not work before 10 a.m. I do not. I don't check emails before 10 a.m. Period. I get up early. It's not because I'm sleeping in till 9 o'clock. No, I'm up at 4 in the morning, but I get up, I have my Bible study, I have my coffee, I have breakfast, I go to the gym, I come home, I have a second breakfast with my wife. I really
Very
do.
Lord of the Rings of you. Okay.
Yeah, I have a second breakfast with my wife, and we're having coffee. We talk about what we need to do for the day, and then we get started on the work at hand. Right? Like so many people. There was a study, and I don't know how true this is, but they said that majority of heart attacks happen on Monday mornings when people are rushing to get to work. And
Mm.
that's why I actually started doing that because I never wanted to feel like I needed to rush to get to work, right? So you're designing the life you love. You mentioned here before our call when we were talking, like you're finna get ready to do some crazy road tripping, right?
Yeah.
Like sightseeing the country, like that's incredible. And I want people to see the power in that launch control can help them get there, y'all. Uh, yeah, I don't know
And
where
it,
I was going with all that, but
well, I think that's going back to where kind of where we started, which is like giving it 90 days, right?
mhm,
Or if you're talking about your business as a whole, give it at least 6 months as a process, a ramp for like building up towards what you want. Is like any business in the world. I don't care what it is. It doesn't matter if you're opening a coffee shop or uh, um, like a laundromat somewhere or whatever. You're going to have some growing pains. Like it's not going to be. You're not going to be at your peak profit structure in your first 6 months. That's
no,
when you sit down with your wife, you talk about the course corrections that you need to do, you put those into motion, and you tinker until you get to a place where you've got, if you have staff, you've got the right staff, if you've got processes, you've got the right processes, and then it just gets easier and you can somewhat autopilot the whole process, right? And this is at its core starting a small business.
mm,
You're a solo entrepreneur in most cases. Even if you're doing it as a side hustle, like this is no different than opening a laundromat or a coffee shop or whatever. You are starting a small business. It just doesn't have a brick and mortar element to it.
yeah,
So, in that process, it's going to take you 3 to 6 months to really start to get towards that sweet spot. But once you do, 6 months to 18 months, so that's like what you said, it's like you're
yeah,
working 3, 4 hours a day. You're making somewhere, depending on deal size, between 120 and $300,000, if not more, depending on how
mm,
ambitious you are about it. Like you've gotten to a point where you got past that, like, deep breath, hope this works, got to make this work phase, to like, oh, that was the best decision I ever made. Look at my life, you
exactly.
know?
And I think that too, people need to have that mindset that you are starting a business, right?
Hmm.
And they get so scared to spend money in marketing, right? We need to
Yeah.
focus on it's not what it costs us, it's what it makes us. And I can only speak for me specifically. Changing my mindset to that really helped tremendously because then, at first going into it, you're like, oh man, this is going to cost me $2,000 a month. Like you just start panicking or whatever it may be, right? But not knowing, like you mentioned, that same $2,000 is gonna net me $25,000 when I get a closed deal. Like think about what it's gonna make you and not what it cost us. And so many
Yeah.
people get caught up in that. Um, like you mentioned, you can't start any other business. Let's say a coffee shop. You have to buy the location, you have or lease it. You have to get the coffee, get the cups, get the mugs, get the team, get the crew. Like you're several $100,000 in, and you haven't made a dime yet. You haven't
Yeah.
made a dime, and you're several 100,000 in, right?
And you
Versus
still have to pay for marketing on top of all of
yeah,
that.
and you still have to pay for marketing. Exactly.
Yeah, and in real estate as well, like everybody that gets into wholesaling and does very well at it eventually starts to have something of a portfolio because it just it helps with wealth generation, right? So you start to get into like a fix and flip or even like a rental. Like when you buy a rental, you're spending quite a bit of money up front, knowing that it's going to return money over the long term. Right. So you're going to be at a net loss in the first few months because you got to put the down payment down and you have to do some repairs on the house and you got to spend that marketing money to get renters in. And then it starts to generate and you can see the income coming in from it and you don't feel like you're spending for nothing, but you have to do it up front. Right.
Yeah,
And so
exactly.
marketing for wholesaling is the same. In that first 90 days, you shouldn't go in expecting a huge return. Now, I personally know people that have closed over $200,000 in business in their first 90 days.
Yeah,
Right? They came out of the gate on fire and
exactly.
did it. So I'm not saying that there's no chance that you're going to make
Yeah,
more than 20, $30,000 in the first 90 days. There's a pretty good chance you will. But
yeah.
going in with the mentality that if at the end of 90 days I've paid for all of my marketing and I have good systems in place, that setting that bar that low, it can take away some of the anxiety. And if you know going in that that's just the metric you want to hit is that, and then go from there, right? And again, hopefully you're like some of those people that I know that just came out and it just all fell into place for them and they wished that they made the transition 10 years ago. Right? But go in kind of expecting that it might take a little bit longer to give yourself peace of mind.
And I do try to share that. It's funny. I even have a master class that I do where I call it the one property away master class because I'm trying to get people to just focus on that one deal. If they get caught up in social media and they see somebody closing 20 deals a month, and then when they get the platform and they're expecting to be closing 20 deals a month, like you don't have the processes or the bandwidth to be closing 20 deals a month typically when you're just getting started, right? So when you set that, I know it sounds awful, but when you set that bar that low, right, it doesn't discourage you. I find like it gives people hope, like, okay, I just need to get the first deal. When I get the first deal, then we can focus on the second deal, right? And then we
Hmm.
can maybe start shrinking that time frame. Okay, it took me 32 days to get the first deal. Let's see if I can get the second deal in 22 days, right? We're trying to collapse the time frame. So I try to break it down in a way like that to where it's more manageable for folks.
Yeah, and it also like something that I think is really important because I know a lot of people that you work with, um, they want to build this up as their core business and their only business, but they're often doing it as a side hustle, right? And they're in that kind of transition phase, right? And that's true not just for people within your community, but that is the typical starting path for people getting into wholesaling as entrepreneurs, right? And the thing about text that is really powerful in this situation, or one of the things, is that you can time box it, right? So if you send on a Monday, if you have a window of time between like 9 a.m. and 10 a.m. and you want to send some text messages out, right? You get those text messages sent, and within 5 to 10 minutes, 90+% of your responses are going to come in, right? And so then you can figure out, like in the moment, in real time, which of those calls you're going to pivot to a discovery call, and you're going to call those homeowners right away because you want to capture them when you have their live attention. And so you're going to run through those calls and you're going to go through the discovery process knowing the data set that you put in, knowing information about the area that they live in, and knowing, in some cases based on the data, at least something about their financial situation in terms of a recipient profile, and you're gonna be able to use that to run those kind of discovery calls. And so you're looking at the inbox, you're looking at those responses, and you're in that limited window that you have for to run this business. You're 100% focused and kind of in the zone, right?
Yeah.
Whereas if you're doing some of the passive marketing and a call comes in at 4:30 in the afternoon and you're deep in your other job, who's going to take that call? Do you have a call service taking it first? Are they talking to a non-decision maker first? Do you have them going to like a voice recording? Like what?
Yeah.
Like the likelihood of you being able to capture lightning in a bottle while you juggle everything else in your life, it's difficult. With
Exactly.
text, again, you can time box it, right? And be present when you need to be present.
You know what you just did there, right? You
What?
just took away people's excuses. So somebody is going to say, well, I don't have time to send out messages, right? Because I
Yeah.
got to drop the kids off at school, right? Or, I'm working from this time to this time. Well, literally, Michael just took away your biggest excuse and told you like you can specifically, strategically time block. So this way, if you have an hour for your lunch break, right? Go warm your lunch up, send out your campaign. By the time it's done, right, heating up and you get back to the table, you can open up your laptop and start responding to messages, right?
I'll do you one better, Clifford.
Mhm.
If people, have they put aside some marketing dollars for this, and this is not an expensive option, it's a pretty economical option.
Agree.
Launch Control has a done for you texting service called Launch Leads. So our team will send out the text messages for you. We'll work the responses, and any seller that's ready to have a conversation will ping you, typically by text, and say, "Hey, we need you to call this person," right?
Got it.
And send you the details. So you can have that lunch break. You can be in, let us know, let the team know when to send the batches, when your availability is. And so then when you're on that lunch break, you can enjoy your lunch, and any sellers that are ready to have a conversation, our team will let you know, and all you have to do is have those conversations. You don't have to go use your lunch break doing marketing efforts.
So basically, this is probably going to be an awful analogy. So basically, you're going to bring the hog up to the doorstep for people to slaughter.
That is the only analogy that I would expect from you, and it was the perfect
Yes, sir. But and that's why I say this is one of the most powerful times to be getting into real estate investing when you have platforms like Launch Control, y'all, that was built by real estate investors for real estate investors. It begins to change the game, right? It really, really, really does. And so, no, Mike, I appreciate you being here and just chatting with us and kind of sharing how powerful launch control can be. We'll leave a discount link in the description, y'all. Um, Again, I think it is one of the most powerful, best ways for you to get into the game when it comes to real estate investing. Um, Launch Control is a partner and a member of the Real Estate Corral Investors Network. They're incredible. They wouldn't be here if I didn't believe in them, and vice versa. I think that goes both ways. So definitely check them out for sure.
Yeah, and let's do this. Like
Mhm.
again, use that discount link that Clifford's going to post. Let's get y'all on the platform and set up for that 90-day period for generating some deal flow through launch. And once you're in, let Clifford know, and let us know that you're working with Clifford, and we can come up with some master classes for y'all. And this is like, me and Clifford putting our heads together to help you problem solve for your business to just make that 90 days as profitable as possible. But yeah, get on the platform, and then from there, we'll do some isolated sessions or core sessions for people that are part of both communities, that are just value adds for you guys. It's free of charge, of course. Just Clifford and I doing our best to get you all ahead.
I'm 1,000% down for that. 1,000% down. If it's going to add value and help people close more deals, because I think too that I know we kind of were just talking honestly, but now we can really get into some of the best practices. And you mentioned booking a discovery call, so we can even talk about what is that like and having those conversations. So we can really go down a rabbit hole there. That'd be awesome.
Yeah, absolutely.
But awesome, brother. It was a pleasure as always seeing you and getting to speak with you. Thank you for being here. Y'all, please like, subscribe, share, check out Launch Control, and we'll see y'all on the next one.
All right. Thank you, sir. Appreciate it.
There.